What's up guys, Dan here, Coalcracker. So today's video is a fun one. It's going to be a little hack, another tool for that toolbox that we all have, and it's going to be talking about how to affix lines to stationary objects. Now I'm using this in terms of a shelter setup for a ridgeline, because we like those long continuous ridge lines in the bushcraft world, especially with heavier tarps. But this also is very applicable when we're talking about just affixing a line to anything, if be it a backpack hanger or a clothesline at camp or any type of camp chore project that you might need a line from one spot to another. This is going to work really well. So generally what we do, and again focusing more on ridge lines here, is when we tie our ridge lines and we get them all set up, one end is going to have what we call a bowline or bowline knot, depending on how you pronounce that, and that is just a fixed loop. It doesn't slide, and it's important that it doesn't slide because you put tension on this, and if it bites down on itself, not good. So what we're looking at is a fixed loop on one end. Now it doesn't have to be a bowline knot, it can just be like an overhand knot with the loop, as long as it's not sliding. You get my point, right? So what generally we see, okay, when you like watch my videos and stuff, is these real big sloppy looking loops on the end, and you might think, I don't like that. I need it nice and crisp and clean, sort of like this one right here, right? Because that's what a lot of individuals will do, is they tie these real little loops, and then when it's time to set up your ridge line, here's the problem with the little loops. We walk up to the tree of choice, we wrap our hank around, and then we can't get all of this cordage through that little loop in a very simple, easy manner. So we have to pull our entire ridge line apart, get the end of it, and then feed it through this little loop. Whereas if you just start with a bigger loop, okay, on your ridge line, what's nice about this is this whole hank right here just goes through the loop really easily, and I'm already ahead of the curve, right? So I don't have a lot of extra hassle, especially in like cold, wet weather. Fingers aren't working too well. This just feeding all that line through, you have enough of other knots to tie. So this is one less that you have to worry about. So that's going to be your like first little trick here. But there's also other things that you can do when it comes to attaching your ridge line to a tree. And that's where one of these come into play, a toggle. So just a simple stick up off the ground. So what you would actually do in this case is you would wrap your loop around, and then you're going to take the rest of your line, stick it through the loop, and just drop your toggle in there, okay? And then that toggle, look at that, is now holding that in place. I didn't have to feed any line through my ridge line. And then it also works really well, let me grab this, if you have these smaller loops. So these smaller loops work well then. In this case, because I take my loop, I push the rest of my line through it, drop my toggle in, give it a little push, and then our toggle now is holding that in place. And it's also somewhat of a quick disconnect. You don't have to feed all the line back through when you're done. You just pull your toggle out and your line will fall apart. Again, like I said, if we're hanging backpacks, you can do the same thing. You could just take a toggle up here, feed it through your loop, and that will hold your line in place without having to feed it all through. So really nice little hack there for all of you when it comes to working with these lines. But let's take it one step further while we're just at it. So I'm sure everybody that has set up a ridgeline at some point has been in a more open area with trees. You tie it off, no matter what way, toggle or not, to one tree, you start going and you're just short. Like the other end's not reaching a tree, or it goes around the tree and it's just not getting to where you need to tie your trucker's hitch. So this is what you're going to do. You can use a shorter hank or a long hank of rope and connect it to your primary ridgeline. So what you're going to do in this instance is you're going to set up your shorter hank along your first tree, just like this, okay? And then you're going to, along that ridge line, you're going to tie another stationary loop, okay? So this short line has 2 loops on it, all right? Now, my main ridge line, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to feed my loop through the other loop of the small line. That's why we have 2 different colors here. Drop a toggle in here, and give it a little pull, and look at that. Now we just extended this ridge line out by about 2 foot for the video, but if you have a longer stretch that you need to stretch this out, by all means you can make this as long as you would need. Now just remember, the longer you make a ridge line, the less support that has through the middle, so that's something you want to keep in consideration. Ideal length for a ridge line is going to be around 30 feet. I know that seems long, but you got to remember you're wrapping around tree on both sides of the ridge line itself, plus knots, so 30 feet is like ideal. But if you got to go a little bit bigger, this is always a really good option. All right, bushcrafters and survivalists and outdoor goers, that is today's hot tip from Coalcracker. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit like and subscribe down below. You can also check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com for all our classes, our gear, and our blog. Also check out our shelter section. We've been talking a lot about shelters, oilcloth tarps, and ridgeline kits, and all that good stuff, ground mats, everything. So check all that stuff out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com, and until next video, stay in the woods.